Is fear keeping you from taking action, making changes, going after your dreams, or maybe even believing that your dreams are possible? If this is the case for you, then stay tuned, follow along, because I am going to walk you through the process of reframing fear by helping you use it as motivation instead. So that is how you become fearless. That's what you will learn in this process. So first of all, let me go down. Okay. If fear of whatever, fear of change, fear of taking action, fear of taking a step is the thing or one of the things that you are aware of that is holding you back, you probably believe, like I did, and sometimes still fall back into, don't worry. I'm still in the process all the time. You probably believe that you have to overcome fear or be fearless before you can do the damn thing, right? Before you can take action, before you're ready, before it's time. You may have the belief or the story or the thought that you need to be fearless or get to the point of not having any fear of doing the thing before you actually do it. Well, that is wrong. That is a misconception. That is your brain working to keep you safe. And what it sees as safe is what is familiar. So even if your circumstances or anything is undesirable, it's familiar. So your brain tries to convince you that, you know what, it's okay. I know it's not great, but at least we know how to deal with the situation. We know what to do in these circumstances. We know what life will look like, even if it sucks. And that doesn't feel good, right? That doesn't feel good. But that is your brain's job, keeping you alive, keeping you safe. So what if instead of fighting your brain or allowing your brain to convince you to keep waiting because that feeling of fearless is coming, at least that's what your brain is trying to tell you. It's coming. It'll get there. You'll feel fearless. And then when you feel fearless, that will be your sign. That will be the thing that tells you that it's time to go ahead and do the scary thing. But it will never come. The feeling of fearless, waiting for the feeling of fearless, will never happen. What if instead you reframed? Let's see. What if you changed? Let me do this the way that I wrote it. What if you changed fearless from a description or an adjective, if you will, to an action or an instruction, which is a verb? It's doing something. How do you change fearless from an adjective to a verb? Well, it's very subtle, but listen to this. What if you changed fearless from one word into two words? Fear less. Yes, it's subtle. Like I said, I know it's very subtle, but fearless as a description or an adjective doesn't give you any inspiration to act. It gives you desires. It says, yes, I do want to feel fearless. Yes, I'm ready to feel fearless. And when I feel fearless, I know I can take action. Well, that's not really doing anything. But if you tell your brain, if you switch it around to two words, fear less, this takes it from being something you're waiting for to giving your brain an instruction. It's giving your brain an action to do or something to follow or to work with. So instead, for an example, here's a sentence or a way that maybe will help exemplify this a little bit. Instead of being fearless, I am going to fear less by taking action or by doing something, taking a step. How does that land? Do you see the difference using those in the same sentence? Instead of being fearless or waiting to be fearless, I'm going to fear less by doing something, by taking a damn action, right? And that feels empowering. That feels like I can conquer this thing. and it gives your brain something different, a different way of looking at it. It gives it a different focus. So let's see. I changed it. I did the sentence. Okay. So by reframing it this way, guess what? Your brain starts to think, oh, I am going to have less fear when I do this thing. Oh my gosh, that feels good. That feels good to your brain because you're not trying to convince it that you're fearless or that there is no fear. It's telling your brain, guess what? Do you know how to get fearless? Do it. Try it. See what happens. And you'll fear less. You won't have as much fear. So that gets your brain on board. And it also says to your brain, like this subcontext, that I can be scared and do this thing anyway, and then I'll have less fear. Or I will fear this thing less the more I do it. It won't be this big, monster or boogeyman or threat, because that's really what your brain sees these scary things as a threat to you, to your safety, to your well-being. So by saying, oh, removing the threat means doing the scary thing, oh, hell yeah, I will be on board with that. And I can be scared and still do the thing. That's where that phrase that you probably hear a lot. I hear it a lot on social media and on different things. Do it scared. Do it scared means that you're telling your brain the fear will reduce and eventually go away for this specific thing the more I do it, the more I try it, the better I get at it. The more practice I get, it won't be as scary. Well, hot damn. I'd be on board with that too, right? So you and your brain are both on board and realize that it is okay to feel scared while doing the thing. And what else does that eventually translate into? Let me tell you. That eventually translates to your brain that it is and you are safe to feel scared. You can feel safe with the feeling of fear. Now, does that seems kind of contradictory? Well, that is the beauty of duality. We can be more than one thing at a time. We can feel more than one thing at a time, even if those feelings seem to be opposite of each other, or they are opposite of each other. We are complex beings, and so we don't have to limit ourselves to one or the other. They can work together. So that also is how you transform your fear from a handicap or something that keeps you from doing something to motivating you to do something. Knowing that you can be scared and do the thing, and that by doing the thing, you will reduce your fear, and the feeling of fearless comes after doing it, just like motivation, just like confidence. It is the result. They are all the result of doing the thing, of trying, right? So that is the reframe. That is the way of switching it from an adjective, a descriptive word, into an action, an instruction, something positive that helps you to give your brain, have your brain focus on it in a way, there we go, have your brain focus on it in a way that benefits you and doesn't make fear a bad thing, doesn't make it something to pretend that you're not. It makes it okay and safe to feel fear. Wow, right? Wow. For me, that was a wow. It's like, it's okay. I'm safe to feel scared. I'm safe to express my fear. I'm safe to be uncertain. And I'm safe to do the scary thing anyway. Holy hell, I love that. So now that you've learned or that I've shared, you're familiar with the reframe, here's an exercise to help personalize it for you. And I think I wrote this at the end, but I'm going to say it at the beginning of this example. I recommend journaling through this exercise. Now, if you're listening to this on the go or whatever, listen along and do the exercise mentally. Or if just, now journaling, you're just like, yeah, I don't really, just follow along, do this exercise mentally and follow through, and then try journaling. Especially, I love journaling. I will recommend journaling for just about anything in some fashion. So I will always throw in the way that you can journal with these exercises, but start with where you're at. That's always the place to do. Don't put it off just because you're not going to write it out or just because you don't want to journal. That's okay. Do it mentally and then see what comes up for you. So think about a time that you were scared. Think about a time where you were scared to do something, but did it anyway. And this can go back to when you were a child, a little kid, whatever you start remembering at, in elementary, junior high, anytime that you can remember up until now. Think about a time or an instance that you did something you were scared to do. And things that came up that I jotted down as an example, because it makes them, when they're not so like jumping off the cliff, like taking that leap of faith, it makes it less daunting. And it actually, we don't even think about it as, oh, I did something when I was scared. So I'm going to give you some examples. Think about maybe taking a test that you were scared to take or didn't quite feel ready to take. Think about maybe talking to someone you were scared to, going to a social or some kind of event that you didn't feel really comfortable. You felt awkward, you were scared or kind of hesitant in some way. Maybe giving a presentation, be that in school or in your career or in anything where you just really weren't looking forward to it, right? Just wrap your mind or pick an event or a circumstance that you just weren't real keen, didn't feel real comfortable about doing it. Now, if you can, and this might take some coming back to for this next part, ask yourself or think back, how did you do it? How did you get through it? Did you talk to yourself? Did you visualize? Did you ask for help? Did you say hell with it and just go for it? Right? How did you do it? Because if you're on the other side of doing it, you did it. Whatever the result or however you did it, and you're now on the other side. And if it's something that you're thinking way back to, or even something not that far back, that at the time seemed, oh my gosh, I can't overcome this. And now you had to think about it. It's not even that big a deal now, right? So what did you say, or what did you say to yourself, or what was the thing you did to get it done, to do the thing? Next, think or write about how you felt afterwards. Were you excited? Were you relieved? Did you still throw up even though it was already done? Were you still feeling scared even after you did it? Now that might be like, wait, what? Yes, it takes a while sometimes. You can still have that feeling of scared. Like, when you do something and you're still kind of like shaking afterwards, or like from nervous shaking, or, oh man, you're still feeling scared, even though it's done, because your nervous system, your body, your brain is still processing it. So you're still feeling those feelings of fear or being scared after the fact. So if you still felt scared, that's okay. Think back to how you felt after it was done. And now, if you're saying, but it really didn't go well, like that example, did you throw up after, or did you fall flat on your face, or were you awkward? Were you messy? Did you fumble and it didn't go so good? At least you're telling yourself, it didn't go so good. But guess what? You're still here. You didn't die. It may not be a great memory. It may not be a great experience, but you're still here. And I'm willing to bet that your brain was doing its damnedest to convince you that you were going to die, right? Just like energetically or emotionally or whatever. Your brain saw that as a threat, like we were talking about earlier. So it saw it as a threat, and it probably was doing all it could to say all the terrible things that were going to happen. It's like, oh, you're going to die. You're going to die of embarrassment, right? You're going to die of rejection. You're going to die from failing, right? Think about all the drama we have when we're younger, and sometimes while we're still older. Oh my gosh, I'm going to die if this just doesn't happen. I'm going to die if this person, sees me mess up, whatever the case is. The truth is, the actual truth is that however good or however bad it went, you're still here. You made it to the other side of that scary thing, whether it was a good experience or not. And so now that you have either walked through or that you're going to, I know that was kind of fast to actually be journaling, but you can journal this process, write down the steps, if you will. And now that you've done this exercise, you have some evidence. You have actual evidence from your own experience that you have done something scary before, sometime in your life. You have proof, not just the thoughts that your brain is telling you that is trying to make fear the reality. Because have you heard, or, are you familiar with the acronym of FEAR? False evidence appearing real. That's the acronym. So that's what your brain is working to do when it's feeding, you're allowing the fear to take control. It's trying to make all of this false evidence. You'll die. It'll be terrible. You won't survive. You won't get past it. Everyone will laugh at you. It will be miserable. It's trying to make that appear so real. And a lot of times it succeeds, makes it look and feel and seem so real that it keeps you from doing the scary thing. But now you have walked through this exercise, or you have the tools to do so that you can find actual evidence, not false evidence, real evidence of you yourself having done something scary, having gotten through the other side. And even if you were not consciously aware of it at the time, you can go back and try and sort through, and it will become easier over time. Sort through how it is that you actually did it. Maybe someone had to give you a push, and I'm going to explain that in my own story in just a second, in just my example. Maybe someone had to give you a push, right? I have two examples that actually people had to give me a push, but I'm so glad that they did. So that is perfectly valid. We don't always have to do it ourselves. That's what support systems are for. That's what asking for help is for. And sometimes asking for help is the thing that feels scary. So just know that the more you do it, or by actually doing it, the fear will reduce, regardless of how the experience goes. It doesn't have to be a good experience for the fear to start diminishing. So you've learned the evidence. Let me walk you through, if you're looking for the steps in order. You're going to think of an experience or something that you've done in the past that you were not so keen about doing, to something that you were scared to do or hesitant or resistant. Doesn't matter when. from yesterday to as far back as you can remember, or from to today. I mean, to any time up until now where you did something scary or that you were resistant to do. Ask yourself, or think back to how, or write out, how did you do it? How did you get through the process? Was it by self-talk, visualization, etc.? And then what did you feel after it was done? And it's okay to say you felt crappy, that you felt mortified, that you still felt scared. That's absolutely okay. And just know that this is evidence. And if you found one instance of you doing something scary, I'm willing to bet that there are several other instances that will come up. Maybe not in this moment, but that will come up for you, or you'll start to remember that, hey, I have done scary things before. And if I've done them before, I can do them again. I can apply the same principles. I can apply this new information, if this is new for you, that I'm learning, to reframe it and give my brain an instruction to fear less instead of waiting to have no fear. And so I recommend journaling, like I said, because also it documents it. It's not something that, you have to, you can remember any situation, but it documents it for you. And that actually gives you another layer of evidence, because not only are you remembering the specific event or the circumstance, you can actually see it and you can read it. So you can see it and you can support the evidence by seeing it, by remembering it, and then if you read it out loud, by speaking it. And that all solidifies and strengthens that evidence to your brain. So now just a quick wrap up to give you an example, to give you my example that I worked through with this exercise. The first one, and actually the second one, I just thought of it as I've been talking here. See how I just said how things will come up. Other evidences will come up. So the one that I wrote down that I worked through the exercise was going off of the high dive when I was a kid. And I can't remember. I'm sure I was a teenager. I wasn't like a little kid. So I'm sure I was like a teenager, preteen maybe, so I'm going to guess somewhere in the range from 10 to 12, 10 to, 13, somewhere in that range. I don't know, where I went off the high dive. So I already knew how to swim. That wasn't an issue. I'd, gone through the classes and all that stuff, and swimming was great. And so it came to the point in the class, whatever intermediate level or whatever level it was, that it's time to go off of the high dive. And that was scary. That did feel daunting because, forgive me, I don't know the heights of the high dives. And this was at a high school pool. So it was a public pool during the summer when, they offered public swimming classes there, but the pool was part of like a high school facility. And so I don't know what the heights are for like the diving teams, etc., but it was the high dive. It wasn't the regular springboard. It was the high dive. And so going off of that did feel scary. So to do it the first time, the instructor jumped with those of us, one at a time, but with those of us that were feeling scared, that were feeling hesitant to do so. So we, both climbed up there, stood at the edge of the high dive. The instructor wrapped his arms around us and we dropped, we jumped. We did it together, like tandem skydiving. It was like that, except with no parachutes. So that still felt scary. And that's an example that I wrote down, like when I realized that's an example of feeling scared and safe to feel scared because I had someone jumping with me, someone who was experienced, someone who knew what they were doing, someone that, could save me. Although saving me was not, I wrote that as an example, but I don't necessarily remember that part of it because I knew how to swim. It was just that taking that step to voluntarily jump off of the high dive from that height. And so that was, how did I feel afterwards? How I got through it was the instructor did it with me. How I felt afterward was excited. I remember that feeling that in your stomach, right? As you jump off, and it's really strange to me because I love roller coasters, but I guess I'm not the one going. I mean, I'm in the seat. I have no control. I'm just part of along for the ride. So maybe for me, I'm just verbally processing this now. Maybe for me, going along for the ride is how to get over that scary thing. See, things come up for you. I didn't write that down when I did this exercise, but going along as part of the ride makes it less scary, or it's okay to be scared because I'm going along with someone else, or I have someone else to do it, or in the case of a roller coaster, I just have no control. Once I'm in the seat, I'm in for the ride. And I love roller coasters. I don't want to have to talk myself into that at all. So I felt excited and exhilarated and like, oh, that was so good. And so the instructor said, do you want to do it again? I'm like, yeah, I want to do it again. Will you go with me? It's like, yes, let's go up. Let's go up and do it again. So we did our thing. Everyone had their turn, then doing it again, climb up to the top of the high dive, walk out to the edge of the diving board. And this time he threw me off. He pushed me. I shouldn't say through because that sounds violent, but no, he just kind of pushed me like we were like stepping up to the edge, like we were going to go together. And then boop. Oh, shit. I go off by myself. And I had that moment of, oh my God. And I still remember those butterflies being much bigger, much stronger in my stomach. And I actually, as I was writing this and as I'm saying this to you, I can see myself just like plunging, how they show from the Olympics, just like plunging into the water. And I don't even think I hit the bottom. Like I didn't get to the bottom to push off. I didn't make it that far and just, swam up to the top. And then I was angry and excited also at the same time. And then after being pushed off, I went off the high dive from then on with no problems whatsoever. I just jumped by myself. No big deal. So I, in that instance, did get the push. I didn't know I was going to get the push. So that that's the experience that I wrote about. The second one that just came to mind, since I did come to mind, I will share it, was I actually have bungee jumped. And I wasn't scared of climbing up there, so heights don't scare me. The thing that was scary for me, again, was me voluntarily taking the step off of the bungee platform. And this bungee experience was where you are over one of those big air pillows like they have when people, might jump or fall out of buildings at the fire department. But they had so it was this big air cushion, and it was not near water, or we weren't diving off of a bridge or anything. It was a platform that they set up, and you climbed to the top and jumped off. Well, that's what I had trouble with, stepping off voluntarily. So I knew that, and I'm like, I don't know if I can jump off voluntarily. I can't do that dive, like that head first dive. And so what they did was the person had me turn around, so my back was to the edge of the platform, and then the bungee person up at the top held on to my hand, so we're facing each other, holding on to my hand, to like arms. For those of you that are not watching the video, I'm like grasping my arms. And then he said, lean all the way back. I'm going to hold on. And so I did. I leaned all the way back right at the edge. And then he says, I'm going to let go when I count to 3. And this was all, he didn't trick me or anything. And so he did. But see, that's what I needed. I, in both of those instances, one involuntarily and one voluntarily, needed that push. And then I had a great time. And then it was fun. And then I felt all the feels of being excited and having a new experience and all of the things. So walk yourself through that exercise of finding an experience or a situation that you did something scary in the past. Even if you don't journal through the whole exercise, I recommend just writing it down, the experience, so that when you come up to those instances, and maybe you're having one now where you're scared to take the next step, or you're scared to try, or you're scared to start, use these experiences as evidence. And just like kind of played out in real time here, I had already worked through one exercise in preparing for this podcast, but then a second one came up as I was talking to you guys. So that's how it will probably happen for you too. You may not think of them right away. You may not know the answers or may not be able to like say how you felt or what you did to walk yourself through it right off the bat. But now that you've given your brain this instruction, like looking for those answers, how did I feel? What did I do to get through it? Your brain will start the process of digging that information up for you. So that's how you become fearless. You actually don't wait for the feeling. You tell your brain that by doing something, by taking an action, you will begin to fear less and it won't be so scary. And that's how you achieve the feeling of fearlessness after it's already done, not before. So that is what I have for you guys today. I hope that this was helpful or that you can refer back to this at some point now that you know that it's here and it will help you get through some scary moments. If this is something that resonates with you or you think that others would like this, I highly recommend, and I also ask that you leave a comment or leave a review if you can on the podcast platforms that you're listening to. You can also, if you're listening on Spotify, you can interact on the video portion and leave some comments or some feedback, and also subscribe to the podcast so that you know when all the episodes are posted, the regular episodes as well as the bonus episodes and the once a month episodes of Lunar Lessons that are strictly for the podcast. Those are not on Facebook, which I'm recording this on. So the Lunar Lessons episodes are once a month and they are only on the podcast platforms. And I thank you for listening and for following along. And if you have any topics that you would like me to talk about or address, I invite you to send me a message on email. The email is vision, VISION, at bluemoonmanifestations.com, all one word, and I will do my best. So thank you guys. That's it for this week's episode, and I will see you next time. Bye.